Okay. Okay, so working on this third row of walking dots, now using gray number 2. When I'm doing really big projects, especially when I have multiple different shades of different colors, I'll sometimes label the little paint pots with 1 and 2, pink, all of that. So you might see me at some point doing a project using little pots with numbers on the top. For example, I've got this dude that's got a 1 on it. It's just leftover paint from a previous project. What I didn't think through was how I was going to change the numbers for future projects. So one of these days, I'm going to get myself some sticker labels so that I can put them back over top of those old numbers and change them for new projects if I need them. I love those little paint pots, though. They're probably my actual favorite ones, even more so than these ones that are like this. These ones are just little tiny ones. And I got them at a dollar store. So keep an eye out at different dollar stores. They're going to have different types of containers and everything, right? And you might find your new favorite paint storage container. And sometimes not even in the art section. Could be in the makeup section. They have all kinds of containers in there as well. So we talked a little bit at the beginning of this tutorial about different tools. How we don't have to have any fancy professional tools. And I still stand by that. You know, I worked for a long time just using the crochet hooks. Now, it's funny, though, because I think, like I mentioned at the beginning, if I actually went in and calculated a cost per end, I probably have spent a lot more money on tools by buying the crochet hooks, simply because they're only one-ended tools, right? So my suggestion really would be is if it's something that you think you want to do enough times that it's worth spending $30 or $40 on tools, then take a look at some of the different tools out there. Now, that being said, this is only my experience with the DIY Mandala Stones tools. I got these white pencil type ones. I got these on Etsy. And they are my favorite. I like them better than the crochet hooks. Now, I haven't tried other tools that some of these other artists and suppliers have. But look on Etsy. Look on Instagram. There is a lady named Lydia May. Art Depot is her website. She sells tools. Jessie D Designs sells tools. I'm sure there are a ton of other artists that sell them as well. And I'm not talking about the nail dotting stylus tools, because even I sell those. But I'm talking about like the ones like the pencil ones that are all the different sizes all the way up there. So there are a ton of options out there. Easy Mandala is a company that I'm actually dying to order a set of their tools. They have silicone ends. They have silicone tips instead of a hard tip. They are much more kind of like, oops, where's my camera? This idea here. They have a bunch of these ones on all different sizes. Like their tools would have these large round flat ends as well. But it's all silicone. I'm dying to try those. I don't know why. I have tried that pointy one that I just showed you. I have tried it for doing little tiny micro dots, and it works really, really well. Again, so sorry for coughing in your ear, you guys. I feel like it's not something I ever get away from. So the silicone ones are really interesting, and it's a set that I'm dying to try. They are on Etsy as well. So really kind of shop around and take a look at different dotting tools. Do some really good Google Google searches and see what you like, as opposed to the, oh goodness, where's my brain? Oh, as opposed to the crochet hooks. That's where my brain was going. My brain was going to these wooden dowels. So I got a bag of like 50 of these at the dollar store. And then if you remember from the beginning as well, this smaller wooden dowel, you can usually find a ton of different ones like this. Please make sure if you get these wooden ones, see how they're splitting there? Make sure you have some sandpaper so that you can sand down the end if you need to and sand off any of those little spots that are starting to break off. This will happen. The paint will get into the raw edge of the tool and it will eventually start to kind of splay out. And so make sure you will go through them a little bit faster, obviously, because they're not meant to be permanent tools. Now, you could always look at getting some wood dowels like that and then maybe protecting them with some kind of really heavy-duty varnish. But I honestly don't know how that would work and how long it would protect it. But if you're up for experimenting, you can always do that. And I don't know how easy they'd be to clean, all of that sort of stuff. But there's lots of different ways that you can get in there and kind of rejig the stuff that you already have in your home so that you don't have to spend a ton of money. So remember me talking to you that my original plan was to do 4 rows of gray, well, 4 rows of the petal. I'm seeing that I don't consistently have a lot of room in between here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to only do the 3 rows, and much like down here and in here, I'm going to go back in and backfill some of that space after. The best laid plans don't always even work out. So if you do plan out your piece, be kind to yourself if spacing doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to, and be able to kind of adapt. That's one thing that I find. So if your instincts ask you to try something a little different and it doesn't work out, that's not that your instinct was wrong. It means that your instinct wanted you to learn something different. They wanted you to experience something different. That's what I try to remind myself. Say, thanks, instinct. I thought I listened to you. And then it causes me to not trust my instincts, right? But then I realized that my instincts wanted me to try it and wanted me to either more clearly see that it is not something that I like, or more clearly see that the technique is not something that I want, or that it's not going to turn out the way that I want, so I should stop thinking about it. Sometimes I obsess over some ideas every once in a while, but there's always a reason, and make sure you're trusting your gut. Now, a lot of times what I'll do when I've finished a piece is, and if I'm not 100% sure if it's actually finished or not, is I will put it up somewhere that I can see it when I'm walking around the house and see it on a regular basis. And I will put that up somewhere so I can just look at it for a few days. Sometimes I've looked at things for a week, week and a half, and that's okay too. And I've sometimes had it up for a week, week and a half, and then something suddenly comes to me. So that's another piece of trusting your instincts, right? And it's something that a lot of people think is just a natural talent to see that. And it's really about observation, and some more patience. A friend of mine said, doesn't it drive you crazy have it sitting out and you're staring at it and it's not even finished? And honestly, my answer to that was no, look at it. It's beautiful. Even if it's not finished, it's still beautiful. And I get to look at that every day. My whole apartment is filled with that stuff. So try and just really, again, enjoy the process. I know you're going to probably get sick of hearing me talk about that. It's so important. If you don't, and it doesn't mean you're going to enjoy it every day. You know, especially if you ever turn it into a business, there's going to be days where you're like, oh God, I don't want to do this today. And that just means that doesn't mean that you don't no longer love it. It just means that there's something else that you need to do that day. I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps a little bit. So here's how we look so far. Looks pretty. Okay, so we're going to do another row of petals, and then we're going to switch back to these rows to finish off the outer corners. So I'm going back to following the same pattern as I did in here. So the center dot is going to be the largest. So I just need to find, I think I used a 9 there, so I'm going to use a 10 now. So let me get you up to a better angle here too. So I'm still going to dot across from me. I'm also, making sure that I don't stick my hand in paint. If that was one of the wet third rows, I would have smudged that baby good. Okay, so I'm going to go for about here. I want it to be out a little bit further because I want to be able to do 4 rows, if I can, of petal dots, walking dots. So I'm still going across, right? So I'm dipping my tool. Remember, it's dip and dot, dip and dot. If you don't do the dip and the dot, you will end up, unfortunately, getting frustrated. 1, 2, 3. You will end up getting frustrated because your tool will not hold the right amount of paint to do multiple dots. You might be lucky and get 2 dots out of there if you've really loaded it up, but chances are it'll end up in frustration for you. So get really comfortable with the idea of dip and dot and dip and dot and take your time. Here we go. I think this is going to look so pretty. And if you did do the grayscale, I'm interested to see and hear how you make out with it. And are you called, once it's done taking a look at it, are you called to add in some color somewhere? Are you called to add in some bling, like some silver or some gold somewhere? Follow your instincts. There are no hard and fast rules. When you get an idea for your own project, let your mind and your heart take you and take that project wherever it's going to go. That's the fun of it all, is to go, wow, look, I came up with that. I did that. Confidence is going to be through the roof after this, right? Now notice I didn't do the every other like I have in the past. Once I'm out this far, I kind of just start to line it up to make sure that it's going to look okay, especially when I want to keep the spacing there. But it's completely up to you. But because I'm trying to keep this, excuse me, keep this lined up with the other petals, that's my priority, not the spacing of the dots like it would have been in the rows of the 3 dots there, the 3 rows. There we go. So once we go and we have to start doing dots for these ones that are going off the edges, we're just going to have to wing it. We're going to have to wing it and pretend that we know how it's going to look. So, or that we are going to get the sizes right or any of that sort of stuff. So, my suggestion is start with all of the ones that are not going off the canvas, because they're going to give you a reference point, really. You'll have the reference point as to, you know, how far around the dot you're going, how big the dots are when you get down to the bottom parts of the center dot. So really start with the ones that you're going to get a full set of walking dots around, so that you can, I'm going to actually, no, I should be able to do this one. I was thinking I needed to use a bigger tool, but I think I'm okay. So you really want to kind of use these ones as your guides. So that you can have an idea what it looks like and be prepared to grab some different tools. One thing that I tried the very first time I tried something like this, I tried to emulate the lower part of a set of walking dots with the same tool that I'd done it with, but it was really hard to create the same level of paint on it because the tool is naturally going to hold enough paint. So for example, if I hold enough paint to do an entire row of walking dots on this tool, that when I only have to do a half or a bottom, I'm going to have way too much paint when I'm trying to replicate those small dots at the bottom. So I want to make sure that I can use a tool that is that is not going to hold as much paint and give me the smaller dots so that I can match the size of the dots that are actually going to show. So when you start working around those other dots that are going off the edge, be prepared to have like a sharp pencil or a really sharp toothpick to be able to kind of replicate that. Remember too that not all toothpicks are created equal. Look through your bag or box or container of toothpicks and make sure that you're finding and seeing the different sizes, because you're going to see ones that have much sharper ends. You're going to see ones that have thicker ends. You're going to see ones that are incredibly flimsy, have really pointy ends but are incredibly flimsy or are already starting to split. Keep a really close eye on that stuff, because you want to make sure that you're using one that is going to stand up for a little bit. There's nothing more frustrating than having to change your toothpick halfway through a row. So for example, like this one here, it's pretty flimsy. I can bend it pretty easy, right? Whereas this one, same package, I really can't bend it as easy. It's got a lot less give in it. And then like this one has a thicker end. Well, this one has a thicker end, and this one on the opposite end of the same one, we have a much more pointy end. So really kind of be picky with your toothpicks. Have a few out if that's what you're going to use. And just remember, again, it's wood, so it's porous, so it could absorb some of the paint, causing it to kind of go mushy and squishy at the end after a while. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's go for 9 on this one. And I'm actually gonna do this one because I'm so close to the top. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I'll go in and fill in the other spots after. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm probably going to go back in with a toothpick. I like using a sharpened pencil too. It's all just personal preference in the moment. I do find that sometimes I prefer to hold on to a bigger tool like a pencil, and sometimes I prefer to hold on to something a little bit littler. Littler? Is that a word? But it's really all dependent on how you feel. Again, no hard and fast rules. So a lot of the times you might see me do something and say, well, why did you use that tool on that one but not on the other one? Because I felt like it. Is usually going to be the answer. Sometimes I have legitimate answers for it, but sometimes it's just I didn't feel like it. I would rather use this one. I like the way that this one feels in my hand a little bit better. Or I feel like I'll have more control with this one today. You know, sometimes depending on if you have any grip issues or shaking issues or anything like that, you might find you have better control with a toothpick compared to a pencil, or vice versa. And that can change on any given day. So try not to stress yourself out where that's concerned. Remember that the whole point of this stuff, this painting, this dot mandala, oh, that had a hair in it. I gotta be careful. That was gonna start to transfer down. The whole point of this is for enjoyment and to help with relaxation, help you calm your heart rate, help you slow your breathing. So if you find yourself starting to get stressed out, remember to do that internal check and say, why am I feeling stressed out? There we go. And one more here. So now that I've got these ones done on the edge, I'm actually going to do, oh no, I still have the whole other side. I was so far ahead of myself there. What I was thinking was, now that I've got these as examples on the, now that I have, there we go, these as examples, I can see approximately what's going to be covered or what's going to be seen on the other sides of these ones that are like the half ones, and how far these white dots are going to go down. So I'm going to have a better chance at being able to kind of emulate that with the toothpick or the pencil. So let's go back down here. I'm trying to get you nice and close, but I also don't want to get you so close that it's almost too hard to see the big picture, right? So we'll do this a little bit further. So this one, I think I can kind of go from right from the top. 3, oops, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So I did 9 on that one. Okay. I think I did 9 at the beginning anyway. Oh no. 2, 3, 4, 5. There was a hair in that one. And that's okay. We're not going to fix that one. It's totally fine. Still looks like a dot. It's a little bit wonky, but it's probably going to cause much more frustration to go in there and pull that hair out and redo that dot than it is to just leave it and let it be. It's one of the things that I find frustrating about working with canvas too, is you're not going to get, unless you start with that really smooth surface like we talked about, you're not going to get the super perfect round dots. So that's where prepping your canvas really, really comes in. And unless you're at the point where you want to spend a lot of money and invest in some, you know, quote unquote professional artist supplies like the gesso, you have to kind of just wing it and be okay with that. Be okay with the imperfections that are going to be there. Put multiple base coats on. That's an option as well. I think I mentioned that earlier. But canvas is that kind of frustration because of all of the natural or the fibers that are there. So keep that in mind. Now, I'm not saying that the gesso is super, super expensive. You know, with a 40% off or 30% off coupon at Michael's, it's probably not going to, a bottle is going to still probably cost you between $15 and $20. And if it's something that you really want to do a lot of canvas work, or that it's frustrating you enough that it's worth spending that money, then definitely do it. And I think that was one of the misconceptions that I had too. I thought that, quote unquote, again, professional supplies were going to be much more expensive than they actually are, which is kind of encouraging too. There's definitely a lot of stuff out there that's super pricey, but it's probably more accessible than you think. So take some time and do some research when you're going through different art stores, art websites, supply websites, all of that sort of stuff, and really take a look at the prices before you assume that dollar store is going to be your way to go. There's been times where I've found stuff at Michael's that has been a much better value than going to the dollar store. So keep a close eye and really do some comparisons to see what's going to be the best option for you and where you want to spend your money. Oh, I think I did a crappy job of getting that in an angle, didn't I? I'm sorry. So I'm using my toothpick. I'm trying to load it up fairly decently and then get that spot in there. So I'm sorry I messed up on that first one, so we'll do it again over here. I think I changed my camera angle for some reason somehow. So I'm just kind of doing this, just doing little tiny walking dots. And I think it looks all right compared to the other ones. Probably a little bit tinier than the other ones, but I think it still looks good. Loading a bit more paint on this one. And there we go. So now, this is where we're at. Looks all right, eh? All right, so now we're gonna go on to gray number 1, do our first row, and we're gonna see how many rows of gray. Perfect world scenario, I want to get 3 rows of gray plus the white, so a total of 4 rows of walking dots. That is my goal. That is the ultimate goal here. Number 1, it'll look really nice. Number 2, I really like the idea of having an entire petal with with every color from the whole scale. That just sounds pleasing to me. It'll take up more space, so we'll have less space to fill in the corners. So it'll be a really good use of the canvas with the design. And then once that dries, once these dry, then what I'm going to do, before I go in and fill in any detail, like any swoops or anything, I'm going to wait for this to dry really good, and then I'm going to erase the guidelines and then decide if and how I want to fill in those spaces. I might decide not to. You never know. But we can play it by ear and wait and see. There we go. When you get it towards the edge, it feels like you're moving a little bit faster too, but it is going to feel a little frustrating sometimes doing these little half ones. So I'm going to keep the angle up here to make sure that you're able to see all of it that I'm doing. Actually, I'm just going to move it over here a little bit. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we just go on automatic again. I hope you're enjoying this so far. If you have questions, please let me know. But I hope that I've been able to teach you some of my tips and tricks. I know we haven't gone over swoops yet, but we got to stick with the piece and see what's going to work. If I don't actually put swoops on here, I'll pull up my test canvas again and I'll show you really quick how to do swoops in case that's something you want to give a try before the next tutorial. 7, 8, 9. Isn't there just something about the grayscale though? You would assume that a whole gray painting is just going to be boring or not interesting in some way. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But I really just love it. So there's a couple, let's talk about top dots for a few minutes because this is usually when I start to kind of look at the piece. It's coming together, it's getting fairly full. So I start thinking about what kind of detail I want to add. So just like I'm thinking about the swoops and everything, I'm thinking about top dots now too. So let me tell you where my eye and my mind goes with this. So when I'm looking at the top dots, I still want to go from dark to light. So all 3 of these grays, I'm going to be doing basically 4 layers of top dots on every single one of these large dots, because I want all 3 shades of gray and I want white as the very, very final top dot. Now, this is something I should have mentioned at the beginning, but it's something for you to think of for the next project. Now, if we went the opposite route, and maybe we'll do this sometime, we'll do like a flip where we'll start with white dots. And then the top dots, we can gradually get darker and darker and darker. So instead of it making it look like it's 3D and jumping off the canvas, it'll almost make it look like it's sinking into the canvas. Okay, so even as I say that, I'm like, yeah, we got to do that as a tutorial one of these days. So we'll do another grayscale at some point. Now the other decisions to make are, where else am I going to put any detail, right? So one of the questions I kind of come up with a lot of the time is, am I going to put any top dots on this band? My immediate instinct right now with this piece is no, I'm not. But what I am thinking about is going in with a toothpick and adding some white, almost like a border, on the inside of this lightest row. Does that make sense? That's one thing that I've really learned, is how to adapt. Oops, why am I out so far? Just took a look at my camera and I've zoomed out quite a bit. There we go. My ability to adapt, my ability to take a look at a piece and kind of figure out what's missing, and trust your gut again on that. There's going to be a lot of just really listening to yourself and trusting your instincts. And sometimes your instincts are going to get you to try things just to try them, not because they're going to look good. So if your instincts tell you to try something and it doesn't turn out good, remember that. Okay, so we're adding the ends. And there are a couple of really crazy flies going on in here today, guys. I'm sorry, it's life on the farm, I suppose, so I apologize if you're hearing that. It's incredibly distracting from my end. So we're going to keep finishing these rows. So I'm going to keep doing the whole complete ones, and then I'll come back in and fill in the small sides like I did the others. I did stop for a quick second to go make myself a tea. So hopefully that will help as well with my throat and my coughing for you. So you really want to make sure that you're able to have these guidelines and then decide what size tool you want to be able to come back in with. So just like with the white row, I'm going to come back in with a smaller tool for the gray row to fill in those small bits. These flies are driving me crazy. I'm going to have to do something about this. It's one of the things that's becoming very apparent, that, living with people is very, very different. Living in a very different environment takes some getting used to. And it's been part of what's kind of taken away my peace for a little while. It's just the turmoil of all of it, along with everything else that's going on in life. Makes me that much more grateful to have this art form to be able to kind of sink into a little bit. And like I've been saying to you guys, take some breaths, right? Take some breaths, think about where I'm at, check in with my body, check in with my mind, figure out what they both need and what my heart needs as well. I'm excited to hear as you guys progress, which are your favorite tools? What do you like using the most? What are your favorite patterns? That's going to change on a regular basis for you. You might like the look of a certain pattern, but not enjoy the painting process of it. You might enjoy the painting process, a part of it, and not the look of it. It's going to be interesting to see where those preferences come in and what they look like after you do this for a little while, even after just the first time. It's going to be different. It's exciting. I'm excited for you. I remember the anticipation that I had when I was just getting started in this, and I understand how much joy I get from it every single day. So I actually just went back down to my small dotting stylus, so the one that I did the walking dots with in here, and it seems to be okay. But actually, for this one over here, those two, I think I'm going to actually go to a toothpick. So let's find a good end of a toothpick and see what I can accomplish here. See how this goes. I apologize for having to stop the video over earlier a little too. There was some noise and hustle going on here at the farm. For those of you who don't know, I moved to a friend's farm in September. And so I'm getting used to the differences between when I lived by myself for the last 8 years to now living with people. And it's a learning curve, to say the least. But just getting used to the noise and everything too. I think that's where my frustration comes in is, you know, if I was in my apartment by myself, I'd be able to do all of this stuff without any crazy, too many unexpected noises happening. And there's so many people and so many creatures in this house that I think it hits me every once in a while. But I'm still grateful that I'm here. I get to live in a beautiful, beautiful place with very loving people. And again, I've always got my art, so I can I can just enjoy it. Okay, so I'm going up a size again, just like I did on the previous rows. Up a size in the nail dotting stylus. If you have other tools, just go up, because the goal here is to make each of these peak dots just a little bit larger than the one before it. And I'm now working with gray number 2. And this is turning out really well. This is turning out how I pictured in my mind, which means that we're going to have room for both. I've got lots of space in here, so we're going to be able to get both of the next 2 rows of grays done. So I will be able to use all 3 grays on this final row of petals, which is kind of cool. It's nice when it works out the way you think it's going to. So remember that when you are kind of putting together a color palette, you have all of the choice. It is all within your control. I usually say go for 4 to 5 colors, or I also will say, you know, go with 3 or 4 colors plus white and plus a little accent color. That's usually kind of my sweet spot. If I go if I go any less, it's maybe 2 colors. That's the, 2 or 1 colors. 3 colors for me has never worked out. I found that just the alternating of the patterns, I'm always getting some of the same colors hitting together. So it's kind of do 1 or 2. And then after that, jump up to like 4, 5, 6, or 10, or as many colors as you want to go with. Okay, so now we're getting out towards the edge. So I'm going to try one set of walking dots with this tool and loading the paint to see if it's going to carry enough paint all the way down the side for me. So as you get to these larger petals, that's one thing you want to kind of test. So let's see what happens with this one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I was able to get 10 around there, but it just barely made it around. Like I just barely made it to the end with enough paint. So I put a little more paint on this side, and that looks pretty good. So what this is telling me though is that for the next row, I'm probably not going to be able to keep the enough paint on the tool to make it all the way from the peak down to the bottom. So with this next row, I will show you how we deal with that. And it's a very easy trick. You may have even seen it in some of my other videos. But it will save you a lot of headaches as you kind of learn going through this. I wish that I had learned this earlier, earlier than I did. because it definitely would have saved me a lot of headaches as well. All right, and just making sure that I still have this at a decent angle for you guys. Still learning, still learning. I have this wonderful dream that eventually what's going to happen is you're going to see me with like an actual camera, not filming on my phone, having somebody to edit my video for me so that all I need to do is just sit and paint and create and create and create. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That is the ultimate goal. It's fun to daydream about that sort of stuff. I kind of have it in my head, like, wouldn't it be great if all I have to do is paint all day and talk to people and do my lives and whatever else that I'm going to do working with people. And then I can send all the raw material off to someone and say, here you go, create my social media content out of it, edit my videos, get them up on YouTube, get the tutorials up on Patreon. Oh, just the idea sounds absolutely heavenly. And that's how I know that it's a worthwhile goal. So one of the things I'm learning in this course that I'm taking a course called the Heart-Centered CEO. And it's conducted by a guy out of Australia. His name is Tyson Sharp. And he's absolutely incredible. So one of the things that I've learned is when you're making your to-do list, have your actual goals in mind, right? So if one of my goals is to gain some financial independence and security so that I can hire on a team member or two to do all of this stuff, that will further my business. It will allow me to interact more people. It'll allow me to teach more people, potentially help more people, and allow me to sit and do what I love more, right? Those are the ultimate goals. We're going to talk about this more on another tutorial too, because I think it's a topic worth some extra discussion. But for the sake of today, I think it's still valuable here, reminding yourself of why you're actually doing the thing that you're doing. You know, we've talked a lot about doing it for the sheer joy of it, but the thought is probably going to pop into a lot of people's minds of, wow, if I really enjoy it, just like it did for me, if I really enjoy it, I wonder if I can make a career out of this, right? I'm still at the very beginning of all of this. And when I say the beginning, I don't mean time-wise, right? I've been working on this as an idea for a career since March, really. You know, since COVID hit, that's when I'm like, okay, time to step into it, time to make this happen. And that wasn't the first time I had the idea for it. I've been thinking about the idea of it for quite some time, probably since last summer of 2019. So it takes time to make these things happen, and you have to get really, really honest with yourself. So when you're looking at what exactly it is you want to accomplish with it, what are your ultimate goals? The first thing you start with is, what is the feeling that I want? And what do I want my ultimate kind of contribution to be, right? I want to help people. I want to encourage people to try something new, try something they think that they can't do, see how capable they are, and then see where that takes them. And that's my ultimate goal, right? So everything that I plan for myself on a to-do list has to, in part at least, be based around that and be furthering me towards that goal. So then I can come up with the sub-goals. Okay, well, how can I help more people, right? I can create more content. How do I create more content? Get people to help me with all of the non-content related stuff. Or non-content creating as far as painting, you know, have somebody that can help me with all of that stuff so I can spend more time painting, which means I can create more content, get more stuff out there and get it to more people and help more people and have more time to talk to people on the phone, talk to them on Zoom meetings, have these incredible conversations to be able to help them get where they want to go with this. So those are part of my ultimate goals. So you see how the chain kind of keeps going together that way, right? I hope that makes sense anyway. So that's the ultimate goal, right? So everything on my to-do list, I ask myself, is this on my to-do list because it is actually furthering me towards my goal, right? And if the answer is no, then I have to really question, why is it on the to-do list at all? Is it on the to-do list because I'm afraid I'm not going to make any money? And fear of not making money is a huge thing. If you create something into a business, whether it's art, whether it's anything else, fear of not making money is very, very real. And what I've learned as well is that the relationship with money is going to matter. My relationship with my fear of not having enough, of, having too much and seeming greedy, all of those sorts of things come into play, and you have to have some really honest conversations with yourself to figure out where it is you are on those different spectrums, right? Okay, I'm going to move on now to, I was using this size tool, trying to get it in focus here for you guys, and I have no idea how to do that. There we go. I was using the tool on the right. So the tool on the left is a little bit bigger, but not by much. So I'm actually going to go up even a further size. So this is a better size difference in my mind. I can see the size difference. So I'm going to go to the larger tool, and I'm going on to gray number 3 now. So I'm still going to start with my peaks, but this is where we kind of have to come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to be able to make it from the top of the peak all the way down to the bottom of the petal with one tool or with one dip in the paint. Okay, so let's start with the peak dots first. And then I'll come back and I'll show you the trick for this. Oops, get the hair off of there. Pretty much, I really need to start putting it in my descriptions on my website that 99% of the things that anybody is going to buy from me, there will be dog and cat hair painted into it somewhere. Okay, so those are nice and big. 2 more. Okay, so because I know I'm not going to make it all the way down, so if I'm going to kind of go like this a little bit. There we go. So if I know I'm not going to make it all the way down with one tool, here is the trick. I'm going to take the same tool that I used to make this top peak dot. I'm going to dip again, only this time I'm going to create the first dot here and dip again and create that next dot. Now you can do this, like if you were creating some huge petals, you can do this going down as far as you need to until you get to a point where you've got a nice long, a nice chunk of space, I guess, to fill with one tool and finish off the walking dots. If you don't have nail dotting stylus tools, this is how you would create the look of walking dots without having the dotting tools to do it. So if you only have flat-ended tools, pens, pencils, ends of paint brushes, cotton swabs, wooden dowels, things like that, you can slowly get smaller and smaller as you go down, and it'll create the look of the walking dots without actually doing the walking dots. So that is the trick. So I'm going to add that there, add that one, and do this all the way around. And it's nice to see now too, because I'm seeing where the peak is, and see this guideline that's here? That's going to be a perfect spot to do a couple more rows, just like I did there in the middle. Oh, that stupid fly. Oh my goodness. I gotta get a fly swatter. This is really irritating. I'm so sorry, you guys. I wonder if I can get it. I wonder if I can get it if I try to smack it with a cloth. I wonder. Come here. Come here, you. Oh, now he landed. He's afraid of me. Ah, farm life. Okay, so now that we have those extra dots on there, now I can go back in. I'm actually going to use the same dotting tool. You can use the same one that we just added these dots in and go all the way down, but I'm going to try the one smaller. Lovely. Ooh, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to go this way. You're going to find that you have your own preference of which direction you turn the piece when you're working on it. I like to turn it this way because then I've got at least a couple of rows where I don't have anything. I think it's just because I'm right-handed. I don't want to stick my hand in the paint. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. And I'm trying not to anyway. Trying not to stick my hand in the paint. I'm anticipating someone getting home or someone leaving for work in a couple of minutes. So if I have to stop this and you see a cut in the video in a few minutes, I'm just trying to avoid a ton of noise. But I won't keep progressing on this without you. So my next tutorial is going to come out November 1st. So you've got a whole full month there. So you'll have basically, 5 to 6 weeks for these 2 projects. And it's nice that you can always come back to them too, right? Almost done. This is the point where I don't get impatient to have it done. I get impatient to add in other details and erase the guidelines. I'm like, yes, let's do this. I'm ready for detail. Let's go. And we're getting to that point, and I always find that so fun. I love doing the top dots. I love seeing. It's so funny because I'll look at a piece and I'll even say, oh, it's so beautiful. Maybe I don't even need top dots, right? Like looking at this, and especially looking at it through the camera while I'm talking to you, it looks beautiful. I'm really, really happy with it. But I'm also know that once we add the top dots on these center dots, this whole piece is just gonna pop. And I want you to have some fun with the top dots too. So if you've used a bunch of different colors, whatever colors you've used for your center dots, you've got a couple options for your top dots. If you want to use the other colors for your top dots, you can, or you can just slowly start adding some white to each of the colors that you did for the center dots, and add a little bit of white, do your top dots, let them dry, add a little bit more white, do your top dots, let them dry, and just keep going on like that. That's one option. Or like I said, yeah, do different colors. Completely up to you how you want to do it. All your preference. And try different ones out. Try one way out on this project, try it a different way on another project, and see what your preference is. Might depend on the colors, might depend on the design that you use. Just kind of trust how you feel with it. There we go. Okay. So let me turn this way again and get it in frame for you. So this is how we look now. Okay, so we're very close to the edge. I'm not going to do any more petals. I'm really happy that I got all 3 grays in here. So now I'm going to look at this guideline here, and I'm going to start doing rows like I did here. I'm going to go right back again to the lightest gray, and I'm going to go to the same size tool that I did in here. Now this is going to be different. In this case, we're not going to be doing the, marking at 12 o'clock and spinning it and dividing the sections in half. This time, we're just going to wing it. Actually, that's a lie. We are going to try dividing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot right by each of the guidelines and then just start dividing those ones in half. So let me see here. I'm going to get a better camera angle for this for you because I'm going to do one end at a time. So let's see here. How's this going to work the best? Okay, so let's go here like this because then you can see a couple of guidelines. And let me move it in here. All right, so I'm going to start with a dot here And then I'm going to do a dot here. The reason I changed my mind from winging it to this is this spacing just looks so nice that I don't want this outer one to look sloppy and different. I like the uniformity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the halfway points. And then once I get these done, then for this little part here, I'm just going to have to wing those and kind of estimate based on how much space I have in between these others. So I'm going to just divide this in half. I feel like with that one, I can do one about here, and it's about the same. Looks pretty darn close anyway. So then I'll divide this one in half. And again, this is where things get really fun, right? Because you can just kind of go on automatic, especially once you get the first row done and just really get into a rhythm. Had to blow a cat hair out of there, I think. Cat or some kind of animal hair, who knows? All right, so now we go back in here. And now, so it's okay if these are closer together than the previous one. They just feel it a little bit right now, and that's okay. I just wanted to keep that uniformity with the spacing there, if possible. Ooh, flies right there. Oh, you bugger. Get out of here. So close, you guys. So close. Oh, you're going to hear me say that. Oh, farm life. I think I just hit the phone with my cheek. I've kind of got it up sitting beside my face, looking down here. Oh, gotta turn that a little bit. Good thing I keep taking a quick peek in the camera. And then just keep dividing in half. And it's okay to let the paint go over the side when you get towards the edge like that. Some white spots showing through on the canvas from there, and that's okay, because what I'm going to do is at the very, very final end of the project, I'm going to go through with a small black paintbrush and see if there is anything that needs to be touched up. Well, paintbrush and black paint, I should say. See if there's anything that needs to be touched up. Those might be covered up by the next row of dots, though. So we might luck out. So it's all about looking at how the piece is coming together and where there's potential opportunities for different patterns, like these big circles, where there's spaces that could be a good opportunity for some swoops or some other kind of detail to put in there. A lot of dot artists too will use a paintbrush and put some solid lines in pieces. Really play with it and see what you like. You might decide that you want to do a piece that's all swoops. I've honestly been having that kind of craving, so we might do one of those soon. Have the craving to do a piece that's all swoops. I think that'd be fun. There's the last one there. I hope I got that. I hope I wasn't just doing all of that off camera. I apologize if I was. I will learn for next time, I promise. So now that I'm back in the center again, filling that in, and there we go. So that end is now done, right? So now we're going to zoom over to the other end, and I'm going to do the zoomed out version here. So making sure you're still cleaning off your tool on a regular basis, every 2 or 3 dots. There are some projects and some paints that I work with that I actually clean the tool off every single dot. It really depends on the paint, and it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, and just keeping an eye out. You'll notice very quickly when the size and shape of your dots is being affected by the paint that is still on your tool. And it depends on, excuse me again, it also depends on how the paint is drying too, right? If it's paint that's drying really, really fast, you want to clean off your tool more often, because the more it dries, it's going to stick on there. It's going to actually change the size of the tool and will have a massive impact on the size and shape of your dots. So just kind of play it by ear. You're going to start to feel it when it gets more full of paint. You're going to see it in your dots. You're going to feel it when you put your tool down and how the paint comes off. But that just comes with practice, you guys, because it's just familiarity, right? So not even practice, that's just familiarity. The more familiar you become with all of this stuff, the easier it will be to recognize when there's things that need to be done a little differently. I had to stop for a sip of my tea. All right, so now we keep dividing in half. Now those ones are a little close together, so my dots are going to be a little close together, and that's okay. I just have to be aware of that when I go and place the dots in between. Sometimes I like to kind of even have it off to the side like this, because it helps me keep a nice curve. But it doesn't always help me when it comes to making the sections nice and even. So even now, as I say that, I'm going back to this way. Do what's comfortable for you, where you feel you're having the biggest impact on your accuracy. And remember, take your time, slow down. There is no rush. All right, okay, so that one's tight. There we go. So if you have to just make some of them a little bit smaller, it's not a huge deal at all. There we go. And if the spacing is a little bit different from piece to piece or space to space, that is okay too. So I'm gonna add this one. There we go. So relaxing. So it's not just about, when you're doing these, it's not just about keeping them spaced out this way, but it's making sure you don't kind of go in and out and create a little wobbly line. That's where the guidelines come in handy, and that's honestly when I find it helpful to kind of move to the side, because it's nice to see that they're kind of all in a nice smooth line. It's easier to place it sometimes. But that's another option if you need it. Clean it off my tool. I gotta give my hand a shake, because sometimes when I'm moving slowly, if I end up sometimes I find that I grip the tool a little tighter than others, and it's usually when I'm trying to be very, very careful and very, very precise. My fingers go a little numb. Yes, carpal tunnel is something that a lot of dot artists end up dealing with at some point. Joint issues, arthritis, which makes sense, right? If someone's writing in it with a pen and pencil all day, sooner or later their hand's going to cramp up. There we go. One more. So now the base is set. So now I can go grab my next tool and my next gray, and we're going to just keep going just like we did in the center. So I'm moving from a size 2 to a size 3. Now, and when you get these different tools, if you get a set, the sizing is all about millimeters. So this is a 3mm tool. And remember, when you're kind of going here, you want to increase the size a little bit, but you don't want to create a dot so big that it encroaches on the next space. So I kind of eyeball it and say the edge of this larger dot almost wants to cut the small 2 ones in half. I hope that makes sense. Then you should be pretty safe as far as having enough room to get the next dot in there. So now I'll go back in. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel the muscle memory when you're trying to do these dots. Sometimes when you just go on automatic and you're dip and dot and dip and dot, that interruption in that rhythm, because the dots run together, even though you feel like you're doing the exact same thing, that can let you know that there's potentially a spacing issue. There we go. These little half ones here. And there we go. So that's all I'm going to do there. I'm not going to go push that any further. And then we're going to come here and keep going on this side. Oops. A little bit bigger there. See, now I'm a little nervous about this one. Very close. Makes sense? Okay, so, but at least I know now that that is a little bit too big, so I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on these other dots that I place to try my best to not overstuff them. I am going to have to cut this out probably in a minute or two here because I can hear some rustling in the house. Someone getting ready to leave for work, I think. So, if you see a weird edit coming up in a minute, you'll know